I spent 15 years babysitting my son's kids. But when I got cancer, he said he wasn't a nurse. So I did, and removed him from my will. Before I share my full story, let me know where you're watching from and make sure to like the video to support me. My name is Flora. I am 70 years old. For the last 15 years, I have been a big part of my son's family. My son, Mark, has 3 kids. I have been there for them since they were babies. I cooked meals, babysat, and helped with homework. I did everything I could to make their lives easier. I never asked for anything in return. I thought that was what family did. I remember the day Mark asked me to help him. He was overwhelmed with work and the kids. His wife traveled a lot for her job. He needed support, and I was happy to give it. I moved closer to them to be more available. I gave up my quiet life to be there whenever they needed me. I did it out of love. The kids grew up with me around all the time. I was the one who picked them up from school. I took them to soccer games and dance recitals. I made them snacks and listened to their stories. They called me Nana. I felt important and needed. Being there for them gave me purpose. I never thought about how much I was giving. I only thought about how much I loved them. My days were busy, but they were full. I didn't mind the late nights or the early mornings. I didn't mind putting my life on hold. I felt like I was doing the right thing. Mark worked a lot. He was always busy with meetings and work trips. Sometimes, I felt like I was more of a parent to his kids than he was. But I never complained. I was happy to help. I thought he appreciated it. He always said thank you, even if it felt a bit rushed. Over the years, I noticed small changes. The kids grew older and more independent. They didn't need me as much. Mark got used to having me around. Sometimes, he forgot to ask if I was free before making plans. He assumed I would always be there. I didn't mind at first. I wanted to be there. But eventually, it felt like I was expected to help, not appreciated. One day, I overheard a conversation that stuck with me. Mark was on the phone with a friend. He was talking about his family. He said, "Oh, my mom helps a lot, but she doesn't have anything else going on." It hurt to hear that. I realized he saw me as just someone who was there, not someone who chose to be there. I brushed it off, telling myself it didn't matter. I was there for the kids, not for praise. But the words stayed with me. They made me think about my role in their lives. I started to wonder if I had become invisible to them. I was always there, so maybe they forgot to see me. Despite these thoughts, I kept helping. I loved those kids. I wanted them to have the best. I hoped that one day they would look back and remember all the times I was there. I wanted them to know how much I cared. But deep down, I felt something shifting. I feared that my love and effort were being taken for granted. I feared that I had become part of the background, like a piece of furniture. I began to feel tired, not physically, but in my heart. I didn't know how to change things. I didn't know how to ask for more appreciation or more respect. I didn't want to seem ungrateful or demanding. I didn't want to cause trouble. I wanted to keep the peace. Looking back, I see how I lost myself in their lives. I see how I gave everything I had, thinking it would be enough. I thought love was enough. I thought being there was enough. But I was wrong. I was giving too much and asking too little. I was losing myself in the process. I didn't realize it then, but I was setting myself up for disappointment. I was building a house of cards, and I didn't know it was about to fall. A few months ago, I went to the doctor for a checkup. I wasn't feeling well. I thought it was just tiredness from helping out so much. But the doctor found something. He said I had cancer. Hearing that word was like a punch in the stomach. I felt scared and alone. I didn't know what to do next. I thought about Mark and the kids. I hoped they would be there for me, like I had always been there for them. I needed support now. I needed someone to lean on. I imagined Mark telling me not to worry, that he would help me through this. I imagined the kids visiting me, cheering me up with their laughter. I decided to call Mark. I needed to tell him the news. I hoped he would understand how scared I was. When he answered, I took a deep breath and told him everything. I waited for his response. I expected concern, maybe even a bit of panic. Instead, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that shocked me. He said, "I'm not a nurse, Mom. I can't help with that." I felt my heart sink. It was like he had slammed a door in my face. His words kept replaying in my mind. After the call, I sat alone in my room. I tried to make sense of what had happened. How could my own son say something like that? I had spent years helping him and his family. I had given up so much for them. And now, when I needed him the most, he couldn't be there for me. I felt a mix of emotions. I was angry, hurt, and deeply disappointed. I couldn't believe that Mark, my own son, would turn his back on me. I wanted to call him back, to make him understand how much his words hurt. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was too upset. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the future. I had always imagined that if something happened to me, Mark and the kids would be there. I thought they would rally around me, just like I had rallied around them. But now, I wasn't sure of anything. The next day, I tried to go about my usual routine. I cooked breakfast, tidied the house, and watered the plants. But everything felt different. It was like a cloud was hanging over me. I couldn't shake the feeling of sadness and betrayal. I felt like my world had been turned upside down. I tried to reach out to Mark a few more times. I hoped that maybe he would change his mind. But each time, he was distant. He was too busy with work, with the kids, with his own life. I understood he had responsibilities, but I couldn't help feeling abandoned. The kids didn't know about my diagnosis. I didn't want to burden them. They were young and full of life. I didn't want them to worry. But I hoped Mark would at least talk to them, tell them I needed their support. That didn't happen. As days turned into weeks, I realized I had to face this alone. I had to find a way to manage my emotions and my illness without relying on Mark. It was a hard truth to accept. I had always believed in family, in being there for each other. Now, I had to rethink everything I knew. I started to look for other sources of support. I called old friends, reached out to neighbors. I didn't want to feel so alone. I needed people who cared, who would be there for me, even if they weren't family. The reality of my situation began to sink in. I had cancer, and I had to fight it. I couldn't let Mark's reaction stop me. I had to find strength within myself. I had to believe that I could get through this, with or without my son's help. This new chapter in my life was filled with uncertainty. But I knew I had to keep moving forward. I couldn't let my disappointment in Mark define me. I had to find a way to heal, both physically and emotionally. It was time to take control of my life, even if it meant doing it on my own. After Mark's response, things changed. I felt a deep, cold distance between us. It was like a wall had gone up, and I couldn't find a way over it. I wanted him to understand how much I needed him. I wanted him to see me, not just as his mother, but as a person who was scared and alone. Days passed, and I noticed the calls from Mark became less frequent. The kids stopped coming by as much. I told myself they were busy with school and activities, but it still hurt. I felt like I was slowly fading from their lives. I was no longer the center of their world. I was on the outside, looking in. I tried to focus on other things. I went for walks, read books, and watched old movies. But the feeling of being alone was hard to shake. I missed the noise and chaos of having the kids around. I missed feeling needed. One afternoon, I bumped into a neighbor at the grocery store. She asked how I was doing, and before I knew it, I was telling her everything. I told her about my diagnosis, about Mark's reaction, about how alone I felt. She listened patiently, nodding and offering words of comfort. It felt good to talk to someone who cared, even if she wasn't family. After that conversation, I started to reach out more. I called a few friends I hadn't spoken to in years. I told them about my situation, and they offered support. They invited me for coffee, checked in on me with phone calls, and sent cards. It wasn't the same as having my family around, but it helped. Still, every time the phone rang, I hoped it would be Mark. I hoped he would call to see how I was, to ask if I needed anything. But more often than not, it was someone else. A friend, a neighbor, but not my son. Each time it wasn't him, a little piece of my heart broke. I realized that I had to start letting go of the hope that Mark would come around. I had to accept that he might never be the son I needed him to be. It was a painful realization, but it was also freeing in a way. I couldn't change him, but I could change how I responded. I decided to join a cancer support group. It was a big step for me. I was nervous at first, unsure of what to expect. But the group turned out to be a blessing. I met people who understood what I was going through. They shared their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. I found strength in their words, in their courage. In the group, I met a woman named Mary. She was kind and had a warm smile. She told me about her own journey with cancer and how she had learned to rely on herself. We became friends, meeting for lunch and talking about everything under the sun. Her friendship was a light in the darkness. As I spent more time with my new friends, I began to see things differently. I realized that I didn't have to be defined by Mark's actions. I was more than just his mother. I was Flora, a woman with her own life, her own story. I started to reconnect with parts of myself that I had forgotten. I remembered things I used to love, like painting and gardening. I began to do them again, finding joy in simple pleasures. I still felt the sting of Mark's absence, but it didn't consume me anymore. I was learning to stand on my own, to find strength in myself and in my new community. I was beginning to understand that I could live a full life, even without the support I had expected from my family. The journey wasn't easy, but I was moving forward. I was taking control of my life, step by step. I knew there would be hard days ahead, but I also knew I had the resilience to face them. With each passing day, I felt a little stronger, a little more at peace with the path I was on. The weeks went by, and I focused on my new path. I decided it was time to build a life that wasn't tied to Mark or his family. I had spent so long being there for them, and now, I needed to be there for myself. It was a strange feeling at first, trying to think only about my own needs and wants. I started with small changes. I rearranged my home to suit my taste, not just to accommodate others. I filled my shelves with books I wanted to read and decorated my space with art that made me happy. It felt good to make choices for myself. One day, I attended a meeting at the cancer support group. We talked about our fears and hopes. I shared my story with the group and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was comforting to know I wasn't alone. Others had faced similar challenges and come out stronger on the other side. After one of our meetings, Mary suggested we join a local painting class. I had mentioned my love for painting, and she thought it would be a great way to express myself. At first, I hesitated. I worried about being too old to start again. But then I thought, why not? I had nothing to lose. The class was wonderful. I felt a rush of excitement as I picked up a brush and let the colors flow. Each stroke on the canvas made me feel alive. It was as if I was painting away my fears and doubts. The other people in the class were welcoming, and we quickly formed a bond. We laughed and shared stories, forgetting our troubles for a while. Through the painting class, I met another friend, Tom. He was kind and had a gentle way about him. We talked often during breaks, sharing our experiences. He understood the pain of feeling distant from family, and we found comfort in each other's company. It was nice to have someone to talk to who didn't judge or expect anything from me. With each passing day, my confidence grew. I felt more in control of my life. I realized that I had the power to shape my own future. I didn't need to wait for Mark to come around. I could create my own happiness. I began volunteering at a community garden. It was hard work, but it was rewarding. I loved seeing the plants grow, knowing I had a hand in their beauty. The garden became a place of peace for me. It was a reminder that life goes on, no matter the challenges. As I spent more time in the garden, I met new people. I formed friendships with others who shared my love for nature. We talked about our lives, our dreams, and our families. It felt good to be part of a community that valued and respected me. Meanwhile, Mark's absence in my life became less painful. I still wished things were different, but I wasn't waiting for him anymore. I had found a new family in my friends and community. They were there for me, offering support and kindness without expecting anything in return. I learned to rely on myself, to trust my instincts. I discovered strengths I didn't know I had. I realized I could face my illness and my future with courage. I was no longer afraid. One evening, as I sat in my garden, I reflected on how far I had come. I thought about the journey I had taken, the obstacles I had overcome. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I felt proud of myself for taking control, for finding my voice. I knew there would still be hard days, days when the loneliness would creep in. But I also knew I had the tools to handle them. I had built a new life, one where I was the main character, not a supporting role. I no longer felt like a burden. I was Flora, a woman with strength and resilience. I was ready to face whatever came next, knowing I had the support of my friends and the resolve to stand on my own. As I settled into my new life, I found myself thinking about the future. I had always planned to leave something behind for Mark and his children. It was part of being a parent, making sure your family is taken care of. But now, I began to question that plan. I thought about all the years I spent helping Mark and his family. I remembered every meal cooked, every homework session, every tear wiped away. I gave my time, my energy, and my love. I did it gladly, never expecting anything in return. But when I needed help, Mark wasn't there. Sitting alone in my kitchen one afternoon, I wondered what my legacy should be. I realized that leaving something behind wasn't just about money or possessions. It was about leaving a part of myself, a part that would be remembered and cherished. I wanted my legacy to reflect my values and my journey. I started to reconsider my will. I wanted to ensure that what I left behind would go to those who truly valued me, who had been there for me. I thought about Mary, Tom, and the other friends I had made. They had become my new family. They supported me without judgment or expectation. It was a difficult decision, but I knew it was the right one. I decided to change my will. I would remove Mark as a beneficiary. It felt like a betrayal at first, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to stand up for myself, to make it clear that I would not be taken for granted. I made an appointment with a lawyer. Sitting in his office, I felt a mix of emotions. I was nervous but also determined. I explained my situation to him, and he listened with understanding. He didn't question my decision. Instead, he guided me through the process, ensuring that my wishes were clear. As I signed the papers, I felt a sense of closure. I was taking control of my legacy, ensuring it reflected my journey and the people who truly mattered. It was a step towards honoring myself and my values. After leaving the lawyer's office, I went to the garden. I needed a moment to breathe, to reflect on what I had just done. The sun was shining, and the flowers were in full bloom. It reminded me that life is about growth and change. I was growing, changing, becoming stronger. I thought about what Mark's reaction might be. I knew he would be upset, maybe even angry. But I couldn't let that stop me. I had to think about what was best for me. I needed to stand up for myself, even if it meant facing conflict. The decision to change my will was more than just a legal matter. It was a statement, a declaration of my self-worth. I was no longer the woman who gave without question, who accepted being taken for granted. I was Flora, a woman who deserved respect and recognition. I returned home, feeling lighter. I had taken a big step, one that would have lasting implications. But I was ready for whatever came next. I knew I had the support of my friends and the strength to face the challenges ahead. In the following days, I continued with my routine. I attended my painting class, volunteered at the garden, and spent time with friends. My life was full and meaningful. I felt a sense of peace, knowing I had made the right choice. I realized that my legacy wasn't just about what I left behind. It was about how I lived my life, the choices I made, and the people I touched. I was proud of the path I had chosen, and I knew it was the right one for me. As I sat in my garden, surrounded by the beauty of nature, I felt hopeful. I was creating a life that was true to myself, one that honored my journey and my values. I was ready to face the future, whatever it might hold, with courage and confidence. It didn't take long for Mark to find out about my decision. A week after I changed my will, he showed up at my door. He looked upset, a storm brewing in his eyes. I knew this moment would come, but I wasn't sure how it would unfold. He walked in without waiting for an invitation. We sat at the kitchen table, the air heavy with tension. I could see he was struggling to find the right words. Finally, he spoke. He asked why I had done it, why I had removed him from the will. I took a deep breath and explained. I told him about the pain of feeling abandoned when I needed him most. I told him how his actions made me feel invisible. I explained that my decision wasn't about revenge. It was about self-respect and recognizing who truly valued me. Mark listened, but I could see he was angry. He accused me of being vindictive, of punishing him for not being able to help. His words were sharp, and they stung. But I held my ground. I knew this was about more than just the will. It was about our relationship, about the years of giving without receiving. I told him I needed to do what was right for me. I needed to ensure my legacy went to those who supported me. I reminded him of the times I had been there for him and his family. I asked him to see things from my perspective, to understand my decision. He sat quietly for a moment, his anger simmering. I could see he was trying to process everything. I hoped he would understand, but I knew it might take time. Before he left, he said something that cut deep. He said he thought family was supposed to be about forgiveness and second chances. I agreed, but I also said family should be about support and respect. I told him I couldn't continue to give without those things in return. After Mark left, I felt a mix of emotions. I was relieved to have spoken my truth, but I was also sad. I had hoped for a different outcome, a path to reconciliation. But I knew I couldn't force it. I had to stand by my decision. In the days that followed, there was a noticeable distance between us. Mark didn't call, and the kids didn't visit. It was as if a rift had opened, and I didn't know how to close it. I missed them, but I knew I had to give it time. I leaned on my friends during this period. Mary and Tom were there, offering their support and understanding. They reminded me that I had done the right thing, that I had to take care of myself first. Their words were a balm to my aching heart. I continued with my routine, finding solace in my painting and the garden. I focused on the things that brought me joy and peace. It was a time of reflection, of coming to terms with my choices. I knew I had to let go of the hope for quick reconciliation. One evening, as I sat in the garden, I thought about the future. I realized that while I couldn't change the past, I could shape my own path forward. I had the power to live a life that was true to me, even if it meant doing so without Mark's involvement. I understood that relationships are complex and that healing takes time. I hoped that one day, Mark would come around, that we could find a way back to each other. But until then, I had to focus on myself and the community I had built. The fallout from my decision was painful, but it was also liberating. I had taken a stand, and I was proud of that. I had honored my journey and my values. I knew I was on the right path, and I was ready to continue walking it with courage and grace. The weeks turned into months, and life found a new rhythm. I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't known before. I had faced my fears and spoken my truth. I had built a life that was mine, filled with people who cared for me. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was a good life. I spent more time with my friends. Mary and I continued to paint together, and our pieces began to fill my home. Each painting was a reminder of my journey, of the strength I had found within myself. Tom and I often met for coffee, sharing stories and laughter. These friendships brought joy to my days. The garden became a sanctuary for me. I loved watching the flowers bloom, knowing I had helped them grow. It was a symbol of my own growth, a testament to my resilience. I felt a deep connection to the earth, to the cycle of life. I started to volunteer more, helping others in the community. It was rewarding to give back, to be part of something bigger than myself. I met people from all walks of life, each with their own story. It reminded me that we all have struggles, but we also have the power to overcome them. I thought about Mark often. I missed him and the kids, but I understood that our relationship needed time. I hoped that one day we could find a way to reconnect. Until then, I focused on the present, on the life I was building. One day, I received a letter from Mark. It was unexpected, and my heart raced as I opened it. He wrote about his life, about the kids and their activities. He didn't mention our last conversation, but he said he was sorry for the way things had turned out. He hoped we could talk soon. Reading his words, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. I knew healing wouldn't happen overnight, but it was a step in the right direction. I decided to write back, to keep the lines of communication open. In my letter, I wrote about my life, about the things that brought me joy. I told him about the friends I had made, the projects I was involved in. I wanted him to know that I was okay, that I was happy. I didn't dwell on the past. Instead, I focused on the future and the possibility of rebuilding our relationship. As I sealed the envelope, I felt a sense of calm. I had done my part, and now it was up to Mark. I knew I couldn't control his actions, but I could control how I responded. I chose to be open to the possibility of reconciliation. Life continued, and I embraced each day with gratitude. I found joy in the small moments, in the laughter of friends, in the beauty of nature. I was living a life that was true to me, and it felt right. I realized that I had learned valuable lessons from my journey. I had learned to prioritize my well-being, to value myself and my needs. I had learned that family isn't just about blood, but about the people who support and love you. I had learned that I am capable of more than I ever imagined. I wanted to share my story, to inspire others who might be going through similar struggles. I started writing about my experiences, hoping my words would reach someone who needed them. I wanted people to know that they are not alone, that they have the power to change their lives. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I felt a deep sense of peace. I had faced my fears, made difficult decisions, and found my voice. I was stronger and more resilient than I had ever been. The future was uncertain, but I was ready for whatever came next. I knew I had the strength to face any challenge. I had found a new beginning, a life filled with purpose and love. I was at peace with my journey, and I looked forward to the road ahead.